Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. I still can't fathom why these Karens are suddenly flipping out all over the place. The possible and saddest and most negative answer is that she wasn't that person, but with age, dementia, or something turned her into that. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Craziest Karen ever gets put in her place. First, some context. I'm a 14-year-old boy and I live in a pretty small town in Northern California. This is in Placer County, one of the few Republican counties of California, and I love In-N-Out, so I do go there pretty frequently. This happened in February. The characters are Karen, K, her husband, who looks like he wants to die, H, Employee 1, E1, Employee 2, E2, and the hero, Employee 3, E3. As far as I know, Kay had a pretty big order, which makes me think she was getting takeout. I came after the order. It was pretty calm for about 3 minutes, but you know Karens, they're usually impatient. So Kay tells E1, a tall white guy, to please hurry up a bit, and E1 says, sure. Another 2 minutes passes, and Kay starts whispering something to H. H makes a face I cannot help but laugh at. I stopped laughing when Kay gave me a death stare. So after 4 more minutes, which should be normal considering how big the order was and how many people there were, Kay gets super agitated and starts demanding E2, a dark-haired girl, to step on it. To this, E2 says, you're just gonna have to be patient. Then Kay goes to the soda fountain and starts, like a maniac, hitting the dispensers one by one and laughing like an idiot. This is where E3 comes in. And E3 is a young black man. He tells Kay to stop this behavior or she'll have to leave In-N-Out. Then Kay made her big mistake. There's a weird 3-second staring pause, then Karen yells at the top of her dirty lungs, "Shut your filthy mouth, animal!" E3 is surprisingly calm, while H looks like he's about to throw up. He starts, "Ma'am, please refrain from..." Then Kay jumps over the counter into the kitchen. I kid you not. Kay tried to land multiple punches on E3 but failed. Kay's reign of terror was over. E3 has had enough. E3, in self-defense, delivers a punch from the depths of hell, kinda knocking her out. The whole restaurant acted like the Sacramento Kings just won the NBA Finals. I was there alone to pick up some food, by the way, so I joined in the celebrations. The police had to come, but at the end of the day, the police didn't trust Kay, and they had more than enough witnesses and footage to prove that E3 acted in self-defense. Unfortunately, I have no footage of this, but my own eyes were enough. I told my parents the story, and they told me to never try to argue with people like that. So yeah, thanks for taking your time to hear about my experience. It was pretty wild, to say the least. And our second story. Accused of stealing money after returning a wallet. Yes, I know I'm a jerk for this, but fight fire with fire, etc. I found a wallet on the ground at a store yesterday. The address on the driver's license wasn't too far away, so I made a detour on my way home to return the wallet. The owner got mad, accused me of stealing the money. Who would go out of their way to return a missing wallet if they were going to take money in it? Went on some nonsensical rant about respect, society these days, masks, LOL what, etc. The rant gave me time to think. I remembered that I have the business card of the local law office from a few days ago and decided to F with Karen. I calmly told her something along the lines of, okay, suppose you found a lost wallet, went out of your way to return it, and got accused and yelled at. What would you do? I'm going to have to charge you an a-hole tax for your behavior. I made up some bullcrap about how the wallet and its contents temporarily belong to me at the moment, and I'm not relinquishing ownership right now. I handed her the law office business card, told her that I'm taking my wallet back, and she can contact my office to claim it through the official process, which will take a week. And if she doesn't want to return my wallet, my intern would be happy to get some practical experience and discuss this issue with her in small claims court. I took the wallet back, gave her the important stuff like her driver's license and credit cards, and left. I'll anonymously mail her the wallet and the rest of her membership cards next week. I'm thinking of printing out a meme and putting it in the wallet, so feel free to weigh if you know any of the fitting ones. And our next story. Performance review metrics in retail fail to consider that an entry-level employee might possess basic math skills. I used to work at a department store where the majority of sales volume came from clothing, and the primary target customer was women in their 30s and 40s. The raises there were based on a performance review, and at my first one I got a 3% raise. So for the next year I busted my butt in hopes of getting the maximum possible raise of 5% at my next review. Well, when the time came, despite having a very good review, I probably had the highest scores out of the 5 or so people in my department, the customer service desk, I still only received a 3% raise. I was devastated. After leaving the office, I headed up to the break room and looked over the metrics in more detail. That's when I noticed that a full 30% of my review score came from the store's average score on the customer satisfaction surveys that print out with every receipt. Now, this particular company does not offer any incentive whatsoever to its customers, like 5 random responders each month will receive a $50 gift card to take the surveys, and you had to fill them out within a fairly short time period after your trip. I think it was 24 or 48 hours. So even though we had hundreds of customers come through the store every single day, we only received about 20 to 25 survey responses per week, so 3 or 4 per day. And of course, without any incentive to complete them, a customer who'd had a bad experience would be far more likely to submit a survey than usual. In fact, I remember once or twice having a manager who'd just denied a grumpy Karen's demands discreetly tell me, "Don't give her the survey slip." So although we delivered a 5 out of 5 experience to 99% of all customers, the store's customer service score frequently fell in the range of 60 to 80%, varying widely from one week to the next. Sure, there were times when our rolling weekly average would hit 100% for a few days, but I could never bring myself to reach the level of excitement over these occurrences that the managers tried to drum up in our morning huddles, knowing that it really just boiled down to us being lucky that whoever hadn't been 100% satisfied during that time period had just not bothered to fill out the survey. In statistics terms, the sample size of this survey was far too small to produce anything resembling an accurate representation of our true customer service performance. While I've never taken a statistics class, I have a passing interest in the subject, and based on the limited knowledge I've acquired throughout my life, I'd speculate that the margin of error for this survey score was probably on the order of 10 to 20 percentage points. This means that nearly a third of my total review score was based on what was essentially a random number. So I continued to look over the various factors of the performance review score and their associated weights, and I reached a few enlightening conclusions. First, even if I got a perfect score on everything that I could directly control, all the factors related to individual performance, the only way I could reach that 5% tier was for the store's survey scores for the year to average 90% or more. An annual average of anything under 75% would earn just 2 out of 5 points on the review. Our store's annual average was usually in the low 80s. Secondly, as hard as I had worked on perfecting all of my individual performance metrics over the past year, I'd gotten 4 out of 5 points on most of them, with only a couple of 5 out of 5s. This still left me several points short of the threshold for even the 4% raise. So I did some calculations and determined that even if, over the next year, I discontinued all attempts to impress my managers, put forth only as much effort as the employees that were college students, and just showed up on time for all my shifts, I'd end up with all 2s and 3s on my next review, but the store's survey score would actually help my score enough to still qualify for a 3% raise. So that's exactly what I did. I stopped trying to do things as quickly as possible and instead worked at a pace that would avoid breaking a sweat. And mind you, for some reason, the store was always around 76 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit, so this meant I actually moved even more slowly than is my natural inclination, which tends to be a bit faster than your average person. When working a cashier shift, I stopped proactively scanning the spare copies of the coupons that were kept at each cash register for the various 15% off everything coupons that were constantly sent out in the mail for every customer who came through my line. We were allowed, mildly encouraged, but certainly not required to do this, instead only scanning it for folks who explicitly asked me if I had it. If I wasn't working at a register, where it would be blatantly obvious, I'd spend 20 to 25 minutes on my 15-minute breaks. When working a shift on the sales floor, instead of working diligently and methodically to straighten up every shelf and table, I'd spend just enough time on the worst ones to get them looking reasonably decent, then spent an hour or two just walking laps around the store, looking like I was on my way somewhere, stopping only when a customer flagged me down. Whenever I was working directly with a customer, I'd still provide great customer service, but for everything else, I was just phoning it in. Sure enough, a year later, the comments on my review were a lot more critical than they'd ever been, and yet I once again had a 3% raise. That raise was oh so much more rewarding than any of the previous ones had been. This became my status quo for the rest of the time I worked there, until I landed a full-time tech support job and said, sayonara to retail once and for all. I distinctly remember when I turned in my notice, the store manager said, "Well, we'll miss you. If you ever want to come back for some extra cash around the holidays or anything, we'll bring you back on at the same rate you have now." I was making $8.43, while the state minimum wage was $7.25. My new job was paying me $11 an hour. I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. And our last story. Not a disabled space? One day when my son, who has cerebral palsy and has never walked, was 3, I took him to a popular shopping center. Drove around for a little while but couldn't find a vacant disabled parking space. I did find an empty Parents with Prams designated space, though. I pulled in, opened the rear hatch of our van, lowered the wheelchair ramp, and leaned in to undo the restraints until I heard this bellowing from behind me. "You shouldn't be parked there. You people complain when we park in your spots. What do you think you're doing? Your kid hasn't got a pram. Go find a disabled spot." There was more, but you get the idea. I was a bit shocked. I hadn't thought before I parked how unfair it obviously was I'd taken this space when my disabled son was in a wheelchair, not a pram, so I fastened the restraints on the wheelchair again and closed the ramp and hatch. Mr. Social Justice stopped shouting and watched smugly. As I reached into the van, pulled out the stroller, placed my son in it, and walked away, whilst Mr. Social Justice, his wife, and small child sat in their car and watched. That's just weird. The pram spaces are for people who need extra space either side to load their kids in or out. Whether you have a pram or a wheelchair, I think you qualify. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.